Okay, now we're going.
Oh, beautiful.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Behind the Gate podcast. We are so grateful to have a really cool dude that we've really gotten to know uh, over the last, for me, couple of weeks, months. His name is Mike Marro from GT Bicycles. He is what's your title again? The senior brand
Uh,
manager of GT Bikes.
that's it. That's it. It's kind of an ambiguous title. I oversee all of the global marketing and creative for the brand around the world in all the different factions. So, Bryce and AJ, thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh,
No problem,
absolutely.
man. Thank you for joining us. I do want to ask right off the bat, are you a bike guy who is a brand manager, or were you a brand manager who became a bike guy?
No, I have shoot. I'd say probably since the time I was 10, I've been addicted to two wheels. I grew up started riding bicycles at like as soon as I think my dad took the training wheels off, maybe when I was like four and a half, and always loved it. And right around the time I was 10, I had one of my closest friends is actually down in Maryland. He had moved up into the Hudson Valley where I'm from in New York, and that's when they were developing that region all with IBM, and like there's a big influx of people because of all these IBM sub offices being developed, and his family were contractors for IBM, and he and his older brother raced BMX, so they were like serious, and it was the coolest thing. The movie Rad had just come out,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it was so influential. I mean, that was honestly one of the most that was like a life changing experience watching that on VHS for the first time, and fell in love. So raced a little BMX, got into freestyle when that like after Rad, I just wanted to freaking learn all the crazy kind of now old school, almost flatland like tricks, and loved it. And then my father, who was a gearhead, always tinkering on cars. He always had motorcycles, dirt bikes. Not he didn't race motocross, but he had trail bikes. And he taught me to ride on my 12th birthday on a 1973 Voltaco Alpina 350.
Oh,
So
man.
the Kickstarter and the shifter and brakes, they're all like on opposite sides. So I couldn't, it had so much compression, I couldn't kickstart the thing. And so I learned to ride pretty much backwards, which for my friends that have known me through the years racing, that it says a lot. And when the thing tipped over, I couldn't freaking pick it up. But because of motorcycles, I actually, continued to ride bikes because I knew that there was like training benefits. You can't go as much as I love to, couldn't go ride a dirt bike every day. So when mountain biking started to become a thing, I fell in love with that. So yeah, I've been on two wheels, either with throttles or pedals, as long as I can remember. But went to college for design. I never thought I'd be a marketing guy. I actually thought I was just going to be like a creative lead somewhere down in my future. And I ended up doing an interesting enough job that they said, hey, we're restructuring and we're going to give you this amazing opportunity. So we like the way you tell stories. And here I am, I think 11 years later with the company.
That's awesome, man.
And
Um,
now,
Go ahead, AJ.
were you from, where did you grow up again?
Yeah, so I grew up in New York, like
Okay.
Dutchess County, New York, so like an hour north of the city.
And
Raced
GT
MS,
is Connecticut, no?
well, so GT now is. So here's a fun story for you guys. And you just, you guys go like this, like or get the cane out, like on the Apollo, live from the Apollo. Get me off this screen if I ramble too long. But so if we go back into let's talk mountain bikes and brand history. Through like the heyday of the mountain bike sport, and even before then, like GT was one of the biggest names out there, right? Everybody remembers how like from the movie Rad all the way through to seeing not only their badass race bikes, but like the freestyle bikes, like the Pro Performer. GT became one of the world's largest bicycle brands. At the same time, there was this kind of unique, kind of maverick brand out of Connecticut called Cannondale. And we know about how nuts that was when Cannondale developed the motocross bike, quads, and these two brands were arch rivals, right? East Coast, West Coast, it was like Tupac and Biggie. But through the way that big businesses go, they were bought and sold and bankruptcies happened. And both brands were purchased by the same parent organization, that was Terrell Sports. So it's kind of like they took Biggie and Tupac, and now they're sharing bunk beds in
They're under the same label.
Biggie's room. Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So I didn't know anything. I didn't know that at all. Bryce, you knew that or a little
I
bit about that?
I did. In fact, so I grew up racing BMX, as you know, AJ. And I started out after I graduated from like it was a Huffy dirt dog. I was 3 or 4 years old. It was my first bicycle. And then my first race, like true BMX bike, like after I showed some talent after that, was a GT Mach 1 Mini. Little chrome thing. It was absolutely awesome. I still remember it had like blue and neon green print on it. And then I went from the Mach 1 to a Power Light, which was also, I think, a GT subsidiary at some point, right?
Powerlay. I mean, there's a point where GT. So what GT was, like Gary Turner, Richard Long, the guys that founded that brand, were so smart. They ended up not only developing those bikes, they also developed the Dyno brand secondarily, right? Dyno, and that was huge in the freestyle space. And then they started this amazing distributorship called Rightway. So they were able to call on all these dealers, and they would stock everything from like cable wires to derailleur hangers to replacement bearings. And when the kind of the sales guys are calling the shop, based on this Rightway distributor model, they're saying, hey, what's the floor space looking like? You got any room for this bike, a GT Avalanche, or this race bike? So they grew this freaking powerhouse. And yeah, there's Robinson, there's Powerlight, right? Like these pretty amazing race brands that were all kind of distributed through Rightway and essentially owned by the GT organization.
Cool. And now, so so Cannondale GT, they're under the same umbrella, but they're still separate. I mean, entirely, basically, right?
Yeah, there are some shared resources, like some of our engineers and the sales staff, and like the overall kind of sales leadership are shared. They're responsible for both brands. But like as far as product, the crew that develops the bike, the industrial designers, the marketing teams, sports marketing teams, they're all separate. It's pretty cool.
And is that merger what brought GT to Connecticut?
Yep, exactly.
But Cannondale's been Connecticut?
Cannondale's been Connecticut since day one. I mean, Cannondale, Connecticut, like on your way down towards like like Norwalk and Wilton, as you're making your way down Route 7. AJ,
there's a town called Cannondale?
There's a town called Cannondale.
Oh man, I live under a rock. Bryce, did you know that?
That's not news that you live under a rock.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that there was a town Cannondale. I know exactly where. I've been to Cannondale and GT. I've been to the building, but I didn't know that it was a town name.
Canada. It's like a little hamlet, right? You blink your eye and you're through it, and it's right near. There's Bethel, Connecticut, and there was a train station that went through Bethel, and that was actually had the name of like the Cannondale station, and that was the first Cannondale logo that came out. Actually, was like the front of like this train station.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and that's what they brought to life.
Well, and there's a BMX track in Bethel.
Yeah, Bethel. Yeah, the Bethel Supercross BMX track.
That's where I remember Bethel, Torrington, Meriden.
Yep.
Trumbull.
Yep.
Trumbull's got a really nice track there too now, and
very
a whole bunch of dirt jumps too.
Yeah. One of them I remember being really technical, and then another one I remember just having. I mean, granted, I was a kid, but I remember it having huge jumps. I can't remember what was what. Like I could almost remember and describe to you.
I mean, as you know, AJ, I raced BMX. I peaked very early in my life. Like I was a very, very young star, and then I fizzled out into nothingness and obscurity. But so yeah, I had a couple national championships before I was like 13 years old. The BMX scene was a lot different back then, though. I remember we hosted a national in Meriden. I don't even remember what year that was. It was early to mid 90s. I remember my BMX schedule like to this day. It was Saturday was Meriden, Falcon Field, Silver City. Sunday was Torrington. Monday was practice. Tuesday was Trumbull. Wednesday was Bethel. Thursday practice, track maintenance at Silver City, and then do it all over again Saturday. But sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think Bethel, I think especially for a little kid, but Bethel had some pretty tall, like really built up jumps that not a lot of people could. There was option big tables that actually had a landing in the middle. Like not a lot of maybe the expert class or the AA guys would be doing the whole thing. But that was about it. So that might be the one you were thinking about. It's usually pretty clean. It had the ball fields. It was like in a park setting. You actually you drive through some ball fields before you got there.
Okay.
So, AJ, how long did you race BMX? You raced as well.
My brother raced it for a long time. Not a long time. I mean, he was like state champion probably when he was eight or nine, and I would have been, 10, 11. It got to the point where the dirt bikes was just taking over, and we were kind of getting bored of the BMX racing at the time.
A lot of the guys that I raced against, I'd say kids, they all transitioned to motocross at some point. And
I think honestly, like if I have a kid and they're, we have a boy, I'm going to start them on a bicycle and make sure that they're really, really good on a bicycle, because I just think it translates over so well. I mean,
look at Jason Anderson. He's a big BMX guy, and I mean,
was Anderson too. I know Seeley was.
Yeah. Shoot, McGrath was.
McGrath. That's the obvious one. Yeah. It just translates, I think, really well, because you don't have the motor to save you in certain situations. You learn to like use your legs, use your arms, and like really like create a flow, and where to place the bike. Where growing up on a dirt bike without a BMX or any type of bicycle background, you can get away with so much. You shouldn't be doing it, but you could just bonk off stuff and slam into things, and like you can kind of just like bulldoze your way through it.
Yeah. There's more finesse on a little bicycle for a kid.
Yeah, and I mean, look at my riding style now. Like I ride with finesse, or I'd like to think I do. And I was a BMX freak. Like we raced, and then as soon as we stopped racing, we were still at Meriden BMX track 4 days a week, but instead of racing, we were just launching the jumps and like practicing our whips and stuff. And then we had our setup in the backyard, which is great. Like looking back at pictures, we got to post pictures, or I got to find these pictures. My dad had a huge load of dirt trucked in, probably like 3 or 4 dump truck loads just dropped in. And then my brother and I would kind of like shape it up. We're like 11, 10. And then my dad bought this 4-foot tall wooden ramp. At the time, it felt like it was like 12 feet tall. This thing seemed enormous, but 4 feet for a bike, a 16-inch, I think it was on a 16-inch at the time. We would set this thing up right up against the dirt. We practice our 360s and like our tricks. And then I was always like the long distance guy. So we would just keep creeping that thing back and back and back. And the way I would get to it is I would circle my pool and then just start pedaling my butt off and then start flying down the hill. We got this ramp to 42 feet, which,
come on,
42
I swear to God, I know it doesn't sound like much to the motocross people listening to this, but 42 feet is really far. And on a 16-inch bike, I have a picture of me, and I'm just like, I would call it Ryan Mills style, because Ryan Mills was a really fast guy back in like my District 34 days. And he would always jump straight up and down like this and like basically like kiss the front tire. He would get his head so far over the front. I just have a picture of me straight up and down in the trees. Like you can only see my back tire. I'm so high up.
That's
we didn't even have helmets on, nothing. Like, where the heck was my dad? He's probably sleeping. He worked third shift.
Different times.
Whatever shift is middle of the night. So he would sleep. My brother and I would just create giant bicycle jumps.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You remember Millsy too. We used to take him when he and his dad would come out. There's a few places up by us in New York that he would come out when he was still on. I think you can get an RM60 at the time. He was still he was riding Suzuki's. He would come out and ride with us quite a bit. And
he was my hero. Like at one point, I mean, obviously, like I looked up to Jeremy McGrath, Kevin Windham, like, but the one guy that I was actively seeing each weekend, like Brian Mills, was a beast. That guy was so fast.
Talented.
I forgot. Yeah, he's New York, obviously.
Yeah. And Bryce, you had mentioned the mid or early to mid 90s. There was another kind of District 34 moto guy that was a badass on a BMX, and that was Terry Finkel. So I don't know if that name, he might have been a generation before you raced, but he had like a really good cyclecraft deal in the BMX space before he used to, like, have you ever seen like props, Road Fools and all those videos that used to come out?
Yeah.
So Finkel was before that started and everybody really started to get into like a lot of street riding, like Robbie Morales and Jimmy Levan. Finkel like would see those guys that like he and his uncle Mick would go out to the 7-Eleven trails in Long Island and Posh out in Pennsylvania just to hit dirt jumps. And that's when like these guys that became like pretty synonymous with that era in BMX, street riding and stuff, were still racers. So it's pretty cool. And then
Cool.
then he got the throttle and
I know that name.
Pretty well.
Terry Finkel. Is that what you said?
yeah.
And
He
was he a motocross guy?
Yeah, he was BMX first, and then he got into motocross and started doing really good in like District 34, and he was in New England quite a bit. He qualified for a few national stuff. He's my age, so he's a bit older than you, AJ.
So was he before even the Ryan Mills era?
He was same time. So Mills was like when Mills was killing it in schoolboy and B class.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Finkel was he was A. He had just moved up to A.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of good D34 guys back then. I remember even like Carlo Cohen.
Oh yeah.
Did he do District 34 stuff?
Oh yeah. Carlo Cohen, Kurt McMillan.
Yeah.
And these guys were like, they were heroes. Like those guys were like beasts. Like, and they were polar opposite. Carlo was just like you, AJ. He was super. He had great technique, great form. Real like stood up everywhere. Like held like always hugged the bike with his knees. And Kurt we used to call him Captain Caveman because he was bonkers. There's stories of him at the Meadowlands Supercross, like back in the early 90s, where he was doing jumps no one else was doing. He crashed in the last chance qualifier and was doing very much like Guy Cooper kind of style, like no style at all, but totally nuts. That was what Kurt McMillan was, where Carlo was super smooth, looked great on the bike all the time.
Well, speaking of big jumps too, like District 34, the tracks back then all had pretty big jumps. Yeah. Like I remember Ace was filled with a bunch of big jumps. I don't know if Ace exists anymore. Diamondback had a couple of giant ones. Again, I was little, so this could have just been relative. I could have just thought they were big. It does like, do those exist anymore? Diamondback is somewhere else. Right?
Somewhere else, right? It's so sad. Like Ace was one of my favorites too, and because you were going back between NESC and District 34, depending on how far, right, at that time, or were you sticking?
Yeah, good memory. So we would just the way my dad structured it is wherever there was contingency payout. Okay. Although before then, so like when we were on 50s, there wasn't contingency. When we were on 50s, I would just bounce back and forth like wherever. We would race Saturday and Sunday, so wherever the race was and wherever we thought the fast guys were going to be, we would just go there. But I did a ton of District 34 stuff when I was on 50s because that's when Barsha was doing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Barsha. Mike Levitt. Right?
Yeah.
Wasn't he one of the kind of faster 88 mini kids?
Yep. And then even in our era, like when it was like Barsha, myself, Henry Rojas. Do you remember that name?
Yeah. Talk about style.
Yeah.
That kid always looked good, man.
Yeah. And Henry, like he still rides like once a year or something, and he can still throw a mean whip.
I bet.
I don't know if he's fast anymore, but he can definitely he's got good style. Ray something or other. Then there was Charlie. You would know Charlie. I'm pretty sure he was deaf.
Yeah, Fox.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was fast, right?
Yeah, super fast.
Yeah. There was a lot of fast, like thinking back on it, it was pretty stacked. Like my age group and like the 3-4 years above me, there was definitely a lot of fast guys.
That's funny. We don't need to stick on moto for a long time, but so I was in college. So when you were in minis and kicking butt in minis, and Millsy was just like being courted by the AMSOIL team at the time, right? Like, so that's when I was in college. So I was living in Florida, going to UCF, and I'd be coming back in the summer. So when there was summer races, that's where I remember seeing you for the first time. I was like, this kid. I remember you had nice looking. Did you have custom painted helmets?
Oh yeah, that's what I was known for. As I always say. Yeah. Okay. And the same guy, Hellion Designs, out of Mass, he still does my helmets. But I was just known for my helmets. You have a good
number
memory.
30.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So I remember I was like, who is this kid? This Italian kid? Who's this paisano out there that's kicking ass? Where's he from?
My dad was a lunatic, but he created like this image for me. Like if you think about it, like everyone knew I was number 30 for some reason. Like number 30 just stood out. The custom painted helmets. I would always I was just known to have the no fear gear with the spy goggles, and like I just had this look like I had stickers all over the bike, like when just stickering up a bike was cool.
Oh yeah,
true.
Man, we all went through that phase too. Just stickers and
stickers.
I remember taking everybody wants a Red Bull. At least I did. Everyone wants to have like that Red Bull logo somewhere. So I remember you couldn't buy any merch back in the day. Like there's no, and they're still super super restrictive with who can get Red Bull stuff. I remember taking Red Bull cans and like cutting them apart and making my own designs with them and like sticking them onto fenders and whatever I could.
Oh
Just
my
like,
God.
oh no, wrong Red Bull. Yeah.
What a dork. I
Oh,
remember at
super
the
dork.
races going around to the trucks and to the teams and like
Yep.
as a little kid and being like, do you guys have any stickers? And just like having a bag, like I was going trick-or-treating, just having a bag full of stickers. Does that still
That's,
happen?
there is, I still have from when I raced. I had my father who was like I said, he was gearhead. He was a Volkswagen and Audi mechanic forever, like working at dealerships and stuff. And he gave me like one of his old Craftsman or Snap-on toolboxes. Right, the thing seriously weighs like, it feels like 500 pounds. Every time I take the kids out riding, I load the thing in the truck, and I feel like I'm throwing my back out. But it's got some of the coolest stickers from over the years, like bumper stickers from old races, old, like, yeah, like you said, like if it was like a Team Stiffy sticker, remember when they were running the Nationals with their over the boot gear, some crazy, like when the whole SMP and LBZ baggy gear phase kicked off.
LBZ, man.
Yeah. Yeah, some awful stickers on there. Then it's got them, like when my father and I traveled, I've got like from like Broome Tioga, like 91 and 92 bumper stickers, and some of the what I used to love because I got a Una F and Dilla spelled out all the way bumper sticker, which I thought
that's awesome.
it was cool as hell to have that thing.
I just got asked today actually to do a class at Broome. I didn't even know if Broome Tioga was still a thing.
Yeah. What was that? Did you ever get to race there much? Like,
yeah, well,
like
I wouldn't say much. Yeah, and I think I remember doing Loretta's qualifier there. I don't know if it was the area or the regional, but I'm pretty sure I remember going there for qualifiers. That track used to scare me for some reason when I was little.
There was rocks. There's some high speed stuff. There's some pretty. It depends on how they ran it, but there was some pretty decent like elevation changes.
I was
they would run that one side of the hill.
There was some steep stuff, and I'm pretty sure like I was on a 50 or maybe just getting on 60s when I raced there. So like, yeah, it just felt like I was really going up and down.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't think they had like a pro section, right, where you like they could extend it and you could go further up.
Yep. They usually there was like that spectator. There's like that step down table, and like a rhythm section. I would do a 180 along the fence line, like when you first pull in. And then it would cut across the pro section. It would eliminate where you could still go way up that steep incline.
Yeah, because the pro section right after the rhythm, it would just continue up the hill, right?
Yep. Yeah. It would double back, and then it was like S turns, and then it would just be like this giant single.
Okay.
You would land halfway up the hill, and then have to motor all the way up, and there was just all this major up and down back then.
It's amazing how I can remember the track layouts, but Bryce will attest to this. I don't remember a single thing that happens in my life. Nothing. I don't remember anything, but I could remember, like, I could draw you a track layout. You're like 20. All right, AJ, draw me 2014 Toronto Supercross. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
They're just printed into my mind.
Before you turned pro, AJ, what was like your favorite track? Like if there was a track like between New England or New York, like what was your favorite thing? And you can't say Rocky Hill. But what was your favorite place to go?
Gosh. Rocky Hill was like the one track that I remember Jimmy Dakotas said this, and like this is what a lot of people would always say. If there was a national at Rocky Hill, I would have won. I mean, it's just
absolutely.
Like, I had that track and that dirt so figured out. I loved Rocky Hill. So I had two places. Walden, I loved.
Yeah.
Because Walden, like the whoops before the finish line, I loved like being able to be creative too there. I even liked when they had the kids track and they raced like the kids track version with the I-95, and then they'd make some cool jumps over there. But my favorite growing up was Englishtown.
Okay.
Because Englishtown just had huge jumps. It got really rutted. It's a bummer to see that they just like moved it across the street now and got rid of that OG setup. But yeah, Englishtown I liked. I mean, anything with jumps, really. I was just always like one that loved to do the jumps. When they first built Mototown, I loved Mototown when they first made it because it was like a supercross track.
Yeah.
I grew up on like Winchester Supercross when it used to actually be technical and not just a couple of turns and rollers.
Did you ever get to go way upstate to like Frozen Ocean when they used to do the night races? Like,
yes,
usually
one time.
Okay.
I remember that was the first time I ever met Kyle Bitterman.
Okay,
And
yeah.
do you know that name? Bitterman's actually like, I mean, he was wicked fast then, but no one really knew who he was at the time. I remember showing up and like he was hanging with me, and I was like, "This is not okay. Like this kid can't be beating me right now. My dad will kill me." I remember hating that track. I hated the outdoor track there because I think it was just hard as a rock. I can't really remember. And then we raced under the lights like the next day, or did they have night racing?
They would do night racing. I think it was usually the night before.
Okay.
And they used to have a pretty big like for like kind of invitational, like a pro-am race the week before Unadilla. You know how Southwick used to do it, where you'd run the 30-minute motos before, like the week before the Southwick National.
Oh, that's cool.
They would do that, and that was like where a lot of people that were in town for the Unadilla National would show up, and Paulie Carpenter at the time would have to show them the fast way around the track.
Oh yeah. What about Canary? Because when I was at Frozen Ocean, Canary was there, and he was wicked fast.
Yeah, for sure.
Is Canary a New York guy too? He is, right?
Is it there? He's a New York guy. Well, yeah. Where's he now? I don't even know if he's back in New York or whatever, but he's from New York originally. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't seen him in forever. The last time I saw him probably was I raced him a bunch when I was in Germany, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So I saw him a whole bunch when I was over there. But
that's awesome. Super bulldog.
Oh, he's a beast.
But and like, all right, Bryce, let's talk. You want to talk bikes a little bit too in the bike industry, because we could do that.
Bryce knows what he's talking about when it comes to bicycles. I don't. I can ride them pretty well. I don't know what I'm talking about though.
AJ's pretty decent on a bike. I'll give him that. And he has a good background. So he does challenge me on a bicycle. I wouldn't be the rider I am today if it weren't for AJ. It give him that.
Dude,
that's awesome.
I tell you what though, I will never forget the day I brought Bryce or we went together to it was Highland.
Yeah,
I think
that was the first time. It was the first time we were there.
That was the first time ever we had went.
Yeah,
and Bryce is very good, but at the time I remember he was extremely timid. But we're just
showing up to Highland.
Yeah, I get it.
It was intimidating.
I get it.
I mean, we're talking any style, slope style. Like I was intimidated.
By the end of that day, like we would session a section, and I'm pretty sure I don't remember you not jumping any. I think you jumped every single thing.
There was the only things that in that day that you were talking about that I didn't hit were those two big hips at the top of slope style. There was a left-hand hip and a right-hand hip. And that was
those were easy. You didn't even do those?
Yeah,
but you did the giant ramp at the bottom. You did the huge drop.
Yep. Yeah. What was that called? Freebird.
Yeah.
The Freebird jump. All the drops.
Mike, have you been to Highland?
I haven't been to Highland since forever. There used to be a big what is called the Claymore Challenge when I first maybe third year with the company. I actually went up there, but it's been so long. I actually missed that place. Like, for where I live, Mountain Creek's a lot more accessible. So that's, Highland is amazing.
New Jersey.
Day trip up to Highland is tough. But I have been to Whistler a metric ton of times, so that's pretty cool.
Man, don't bring that up.
Too soon. We can't talk Whistler right now.
Too soon.
I just hope to God that we can go to Whistler this summer, because that's like one of my biggest life tragedies is that we missed out on Whistler.
Well, at least you went the year before. I've yet to go. I'm jonesing to get out there.
It was the best place I've ever been. That was the most fun week I think I've ever had in my life. I'll just keep rubbing
it in.
Bryce.
Rub it in.
Yeah.
So Mike, it's beautiful, Bryce.
I can't wait to go. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And now, like that, I'm 10 times better on a downhill bike than I was when we would have gone. I'm even more pumped to go.
Enduro bike, like a long travel trail bike is the ticket for there, because I know you're in shape. You guys are in shape, so you can not only do all the lift access stuff, but as they're expanding, you could do runs that are the Blackcomb side where you have to pedal up, but there's trails up there like Heart of Darkness and microclimate that are sustained, super butt puckering steep descent for a long amount of time on that side, and then you could go over all the way over to Creekside on a trail bike. And
I'm down for that.
I did notice I when I got there, I linked up with Jared Graves.
Oh,
is that his name? The one that got cancer? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Jared Graves,
Yeah.
Remy Mata, yeah, French guy.
Local guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
he's
Um,
dirty too.
Finn Isles. Like there was like 4 or 5 like really, really good guys that I ended up riding with. I only did like 3 runs with them, but it was like the most
Three
epic 3
very
runs.
epic runs. Yeah.
But most of them were on downhill bikes. I was on an enduro bike at the time. And then one of the other guys was on a 29er enduro bike. And when we went to Creekside, the enduro bikes were way faster.
Yeah.
And actually, they were faster, I thought, on A-line. Because those guys were cranking out pedaling, and I was just coasting and like whizzing right by them.
Dude, I don't find downhill bikes are really good at what they're designed to do, but they're not that versatile. They're heavy, they roll super slow, and yeah, I think I've told you, AJ, I'm way faster on some segments on my enduro bike than I am on a downhill
Yeah,
bike. Even though like the downhill bike feels like it handles it better, it just does not translate into speed.
The one thing I will say with the downhill bike that doesn't happen that is amazing is when there's nothing worse than when you like stuff it into something and it like pogos you backwards. You guys know like what I'm trying to describe here? If like you're in a steep thing and you just like it just pogos you backwards. That doesn't happen on a downhill bike. You can kind of just bulldoze through some things. But even riding top of the world to ride don't slide or whatever it's called.
You got to do that. Awesome. That's one of my bucket lists. That's one of my favorite trails of all time. That linking that all up.
It was, man. I could have just got to the bottom and taken the lift right back up and gone and done it again. It was exhausting, but it was unreal. There was parts of that were for sure a little steep for the enduro bike. Like I would have liked that rake, but it did just fine. And me and my buddy and I were flying down this thing. He had done it one time before the year prior. I had never done it ever, so I'm hitting everything blind. And Ride Don't Slide has like you get to like forks where you have options. I don't know if they're like old, outdated lines or if they're just different ways to get down the mountain. But we're just like separating and going down different ways, and then we would find each other, and then we'd separate again. I took 2 of the hardest mountain bike crashes I've ever had in my life in that one run, but just like picked the bike up really quick and kept going. And then we got to the bottom. And as soon as we got to A-line, he goes to do this like step down, and you could tell he was tired. And I don't think he had enough speed, clips it with his front and breaks his collarbone. We're just like, man,
so brutal.
He gets like through all the gnarliness and then just like this tiny little drop of a step down. He just brain farted. He was probably exhausted.
But you guys are both touching on something that's like it's an ongoing topic in the bike industry, and it's exciting because how capable bikes like these enduro bikes are now.
Yeah,
it's pretty insane. Like it's like we have, downhill is our Formula One, like the gnarliest, most like they're usually like the most progressive designs that are going to be for like the most elite athletes are going to be the fastest bikes on the planet, or the downhill bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Enduro or long travel trail bikes are so capable. You could ride, your local like single track loop, with them, but you can take them to places like Whistler and freaking ride like AJ did. Did you do Cush and Kashmir to link up? I don't know how you got from top of the world to Ride Don't Slide, but there's a couple of different middle trails that are all like scary as hell, but amazingly fun with how capable.
That's a good question. I don't know. A lot of the gnarly stuff might have been what one of the ones you just named, and I thought I was in Ride Don't Slide the whole time. Bryce can attest to this also. I never know where I'm going. I don't know trail names.
Terrible with directions.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
I ride
no
blind
the whole
compass.
time. No,
the whole time. We could ride a trail 10 times, and he would never ever be able to do it without me, ever.
Okay.
We could ride it 100 times, and I wouldn't even recognize one part of it. Like
it's really that is really funny.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that actually brings up a good point, Mike. So I having been around bikes like we all have for our whole lives, it does seem that there was a ton of progression, obviously, from you go back to the beginning of mountain biking, even to the mid 2000s. But then it seems like around 2010 to now, that the evolution of mountain bikes has just gone insane. Yeah. And you touched on it a minute ago now that like the long trail enduro bikes are so capable and they're getting burlier, but also becoming like more efficient and they're better at pedaling, they're better at climbing. They can also just rail descents. Where do you see bikes going from here? Are we going to have another evolution, or do you think we've kind of hit a wall and we're just going to refine everything that we have now?
I can't be prophetic here, but as I've seen it, yeah. So through the dawn of mountain bike to, like you said, like kind of the early 2000s, every company was trying something different because there was limited travel, number one. No one was running like big travel anything. And they were starting to understand kinematics and geometry and how that really affects the overall ride feel. So back in the day, and I can speak for GT, we had a thing called iDrive or independent drivetrain, which was essentially a bottom bracket that it would separate the pedaling forces from the way that the suspension performed.
Okay.
And because of that, it was a very unique design that we had that some people love. It's interesting, we'll say, to maintain. But we've actually like kind of evolved past that to really start to refine what we call a horse link or 4-bar system now, which is a more traditional and kind of relatable technology with suspension, because we're seeing things. It's all about kind of that all we hear is head angle, right? You've got your head angle, you've got your seat tube angle, so it's geometry, the rake of the fork, your riding position, your cockpit, your reach, and right now it's fine. And we've seen the wheel size whole conversation, right? We had 26 inch, we had 27.5, we've got 29. No, 27.5 is cool. Hey, let's do a mullet, they would call it, which was a 29 set up front with 20, like moto style almost, right? Bigger wheel in the front, then in the rear. And then there was plus bikes. Holy cow. Let's do 27.5, but big wide, like have it where suspension and your seat stay and chain stay can accommodate a big wide chunky rear wheel and tire to allow more traction, and that little bit of suspension gives that a big mushy tire would have. It's all kind of now getting more and more narrowed, become very much a 29 is as the kids say, the shit now. And I say it too often, but 29 seems to be where it's at because people want capable 29ers, Bryce, but they also want, it's the geometry story. And the geometry story goes from essentially slack trail bikes, which we're hearing terms like, what is it? Down country, right? Which are kind of shorter travel, but really capable bikes. There used to be a term called all mountain. They used to go like kind of cross country trail, all mountain, enduro, free ride, downhill, right? Now it's much more simplified, where we've got these really capable trail bikes, also known as short travel down country, trail, enduro, gravity, and that's it. And it's all based on the way the bike performs and the amount of travel they have. And I'm thinking right now kind of that between 150 millimeters of travel, 29ers, I think that's going to be the hot ticket for the future, honestly.
What about tire width? Have they figured out what's? And another question, maybe I should save this, but I wonder why there isn't so much experimentation in the motocross world. You know, like who's to say that
we've talked about that a few times?
Why our front tire size and rear tire size is what it should be? Who's to say that everything is the way it should be?
It does seem like I think we talked about it just the last episode. Like the engineering evolutions on motorcycles seems to not take as big of leaps as on bicycles.
Yeah. I remember, was a Honda back in the day was messing around with a bit of a wider front rim, and that was about it. But somewhere down the line said, okay, for off-road racing, an 18-inch rear wheel is what matters. 19-inch for motocross, supercross, and it's like that, that 110 or 110 or 120 rear wheel up front, and that's what matters. And I honestly don't know. I wonder if it's because of the manufacturers of the wheels and how it is so costly to produce wider rims, and on the mass production side, I'm sure for one-off prototypes, I bet you there's things that Kawasaki is testing out there that we'll never know about that could be completely bonkers. But I wonder if it's just not feasible on the mass production side.
Yeah,
that could be. That actually brings up a point that we've touched on before, and is that it's no secret that high-end bicycles, I mean, you could spend easily as much as you would a motorcycle, if not considerably more in some cases. And I think, what did we talk about the last time? Gas, $7,000. You're talking about what's a top of the line Fury run? 10?
Yeah.
12?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, luckily, and that's something we're really proud of. And this will be a shameless plug for gcbicycles.com here. But that is that we really try to be as like attainable as we possibly can. Within our portfolio in particular, we tend to allow our friends at Cannondale to really have those Porsche level products,
Sure.
right? That will be, yes, absolutely. We've got road bikes that are $10,000. We start talking e-bikes, that's another conversation, right? But a Fury is on the cusp of, say as much as a gas right now.
Yeah.
Some of the other brands out there will have full carbon enduro bikes that are same as a brand new, KX450 or KTM. And that's, if you think about that, that's nuts, right? That's amazing.
Is that really just about like the economies of scale in how, I guess, small batch all of the components are? I mean, you're talking about Kawasaki cranking out probably using different standards, or I'm sorry, the same standards for all their bikes, as opposed to like all these different bike manufacturers are kind of molding their own geometries constantly and changing stuff.
Right.
You know.
There's cost involved with everything. There's the tooling cost, especially if you're doing carbon for the molding, right? Or for the tooling and the jig setup for aluminum bikes. There is the components, because they're so lightweight and they're so intricate, right? We don't have a motor, we don't have a transmission, we don't have this, this gnarly freaking drivetrain like a motocross bike. A Shimano or a SRAM drivetrain, the engineering is pretty damn intricate if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
How lightweight it is and what it's capable of. And I think just the actual kind of material cost for everything that goes into a bike, that's like, it's not like bike companies make freaking 60% on every bike, which would be awesome. We all be bazillionaires. So the profit is probably comparable to the motorcycle industry. It's just that the components that go on the bike frames that the brands make, and the resources required to actually produce the bike, it is what it costs. Strangely.
Let's go back to my question, because I'm still curious about this. What is your belief, or what is the consensus on tire width? Because this is something that really confuses the heck out of me, and I don't know where I stand on it. And I've tried like a lot of different variations, and I personally don't even know.
All right, if you want, all right. So AJ, I know you've got a GT grade gravel bike, which is rad. So that accommodates some pretty meaty. We call when you get to that road. I mean, this is the bike industry in general. There's these subtle standards or nuances that are different, right? We've got up to 47C as far as clearance, the width, right? Or when we talk mountain, we're talking 2.35 or 2.4 or even wider front tires. It does seem like on the mountain space, that wider front and a little bit of a narrow. So if you had like a 2.5 front to allow for the more steering you'll do, especially in descending and braking on your descent for the front, and a little bit of a narrower like a 2.35 or 2.4 inch width in the back seems to be the sweet spot for mountain. For road, it all depends what you're riding, how much gravel you're riding. If it's gravel and it's wider, you can run a lower air pressure, especially if you're tubeless. And if you're off-road more in the gravel kind of grade space, that's great. If you're trying to be, getting your KOMs on your training ride, a narrower tire is going to be a little bit lighter weight and be a little bit faster.
Yeah, I've noticed guys even on the road bikes are running a little bit wider now than what they were. Yeah. I don't know what my road bike tires are. And then the ones on my grade are what, 47C? Is that what you said?
I think you probably have a 37 on those, but they can accommodate pretty darn chunky. you keep getting wider if you want, depending on how much single track. And if you want to talk this gravel,
I'm only riding it on single track. Like I'm
Okay,
riding
yeah.
it on trails that like
mountain
basically
bikers with.
yeah. Like when
Yeah.
mountain bikers see me, they stop and they literally cheer me on
Yeah.
because they're like, well, what the heck is this dude doing out here on this bike? So maybe I
that's
should
what's
go to a slightly, it does great, but maybe I should go to a slightly wider tire. I just like the
you can go
challenge.
up.
I crash all the time. Like
There's so much
definitely-
there's
I'm
so
doing
much
jumps.
intricate science out there about all of this stuff that all the bike nerds somehow
Oh,
managed
yeah,
to.
there we go.
AJ lost his camera. I love it.
Dude, it was balancing. I'm surprised it made it that long. Like this thing was
thank
literally teeter-tottering on my thing.
Good thing you got pants on, AJ.
Am I
Yeah,
lined up
exactly.
now? Yeah, huh?
Yeah, you're fine. No, but as far as like all these little things that people out there, trust me, AJ, they're doing this research. I like particularly with road tires. One of the things that stood out for me when I was like looking into it and researching it is if you have a narrower tire, you're spreading let's assume you're running the same PSI, you're spreading the load of your weight out longer than if you run a wider tire. The load gets spread out wider, so you actually have less contact patch on the ground when you spread out the load. If you think about it, like your whole body weight is going to spread this way on the road as opposed to this way. And so you actually have less rolling resistance with a wider tire. There's obviously diminishing returns at some point, but there's the science is there to suggest that if you run a little wider tire, you're going to spread that load out differently and actually have less rolling resistance.
And traction, you'll have more traction too, right? Depending on if
and
you
can run lower pressure.
Exactly, air pressure.
Smoother ride.
Like if you're riding a road bike for training, you should want a little resistance, right? Because a little bit of resistance will give you a bit of benefit in the long run. You'll be pushing a bit harder. This is dad bod talking. So, but that's kind of my frame of thought. But you could also, especially AJ on his grade, if he says, "Oh, look at that! There's a bike path that's going to bring me to a single track over there. I could just hop this curb and just go rip it." Where a roadie on whatever it is, as far as their like super elite, 15-pound, full carbon, uber lightweight, like road bike, they're not even thinking about even looking at that curve, let alone bunny hopping over it and going ripping single track. And being able to do that, and guys, I got to tell you, the two most discussed phrases within the bike industry these days, it's gravel, so gravel biking as far as a category or segment, and e-bikes. That's all anybody wants to talk about.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing the industry doing as far as all these brands kind of developing and progressing in gravel, because road riding, not only, right, there's the intimidation factor by that hardcore roadie. There's that image, right? So you got to get past that image of, Johnny Lycra doesn't wave, doesn't say hi to you when you pass him on a trainer ride.
That's AJ on a mountain bike, Mike. Don't get it twisted. If you saw AJ pull up to any mountain bike trail, he's wearing that and he's acting like that.
Okay. So there's that. There is that. But there's also there's traffic. There's riding on on that narrow shoulder that stinks. And we're seeing all these improvements to these regional rail trails that are either crushed stone or reclaimed gravel. Like I'm a New Yorker, but they're getting ready. They're completing that New York State Trail, which goes it can be linked up from like the city all the way through to Montreal, which is pretty nuts.
Awesome.
And you're like, you're barely on a road. You ride a couple sections of road, and how capable gravel bikes are becoming is awesome. And they're more comfortable to ride. You're not as hunched over. You're not as aero the whole time.
It's very subtle, but it definitely makes a big difference, because I was riding, I have a bike that just stays stationary in my trainer, so I don't have to like put a dirty bike on a trainer. And then I have the GT that I do all my outdoor single track with, riding. And then I do my actual road rides on the gravel bike as well. And yeah, there's times where I feel like I'm at a slight disadvantage, but my lower back doesn't hurt as bad. And I still feel aero. Like I feel like I'm in a pretty aggressive position when I'm riding. I don't feel like I'm a dork and I'm sitting straight up and down.
Right.
but it just
it's
doesn't
fun,
kill my
right?
back. Like I was doing 50, 60. I did like a 68-mile ride on it this summer, and I mean, I felt fine.
Yeah.
Oh, I did a ride with you on it, right, Bryce? And
Yeah.
we went
Yep.
pretty fast, and I was fine.
Oh yeah.
Especially in Connecticut, like a lot of up and down hill. I mean, especially the uphills. Like realistically, I could probably go the same speed on that thing up a hill as I could a road bike.
Oh
right?
yeah, for sure. I would say
And AJ, I've seen your training bike, and I really like. And I know Dave Ginolfi for a long time, so if he helps you get that thing, that training bike, we'll let it slide. He's cool. He's a good guy. He's a good
Okay,
egg.
well, now that I know Cannondale is, would it be better if I had a Cannondale? Can I get a Cannondale instead?
Okay, all I hear is GT. It has to be only 2 letters, or else I can't really. I don't understand you.
Okay.
Hey,
Well-
so Mike, so I mean, when COVID initially hit, and one of the things being so involved with this space that we all noticed was you could not get a bike, you could not get anything. There was a mad rush on bike shop. That became national news that there was a rush on bikes during COVID, and I think a lot of it was a function of people getting outside. There was not a whole lot else to do, so people who weren't doing cycling found it. How has COVID affected GT in particular? Because, not that I've shopped for GT recently, but other bike companies, you still can have bikes. I've seen some competitor brands who are putting pros on just whatever bike they can get, and it might be not top of the line like they were on last year. How has it affected everything?
It's been fantastic, and it's been insane at the same time. And like you said, nationally, it's been global news. Like because my company, we've got offices in the Netherlands, in the UK. We've got subsidiaries all around the world, Australia to Japan, and it's an industry-wide phenomenon. And what's cool on the moto space, we've heard similar things, but the bike industry has been one of the few, and we're really thankful because we know other industries haven't been as kind of excited about a freaking pandemic, right? But it's been amazing. For GT, like I had said earlier, we do pride ourselves in trying to be more attainable in how we price our bike, and that's from our entry level bike all the way through to our Fury, which is our Formula One. For GT, like we've got amazing BMX and race bikes, amazing freestyle bikes. We're like I'd say we're one of the there's a brand called SE in that bike life space, the wheelie bike space, and GT is kind of, I would say, definitely the number 2 brand in that space. I know AJ was ripping around on that crazy wow.
I was practicing my wheelies. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're really proud of providing really good quality bikes at a really attainable price point, and nowhere around the world can you buy our bikes or anybody else's, and it's because there has been a big rush. Gyms were closed, right? Parents were stressed. They need to get their kids outside in the warm months, and families wanted to do stuff together. Everybody, it took there was that initial scare that we all had, what is going on out here? This is serious. And then we started hearing the news. We started to learn how to adapt with life, with our careers, with our families, with kids going to school virtually. And the bike kind of became the saving grace, if you think about it, because it's something that families can do together. It's something that kids that would have been signing up for Little League or Pop Warner football or I don't know, tennis or golf couldn't do this year, and they said, "Yeah, I kind of know how to ride a bike. Let me spend some more time on bicycles." We're really excited because what we've seen so far is a lot of those people have really fallen in love with the sport, and we're really hoping that even after everybody around the world is inoculated and things get even out and things get better, they're gonna remember all the fun that they could have with just wheeling this thing out of their garage and going pedaling.
Now, how do you keep these people? Is this conversations that you guys have? Because I know I've been having this conversation with everybody. We got to make sure that we keep these people.
It's up to, honestly, at this point, it's hopefully up to the brand, its ambassadors, its athletes, and it's like kind of content stories that for a brand, for the industry, number one. But if you think of the industry, it's all made up of all these other brands. From the, there's the big few, like we could say the Cannondales, the Specializes, to the GTs, to some of the core BMX brands like Cult and Fit. Hopefully, people have found a bike, right, that has a brand mark on it, a logo. They're researching a bit more about that brand, right? They're going to their YouTube channels. They're going to the social media and checking it out, like who's riding for the brand, some fun content stories, and they're like, I identify that. That's cool to me. That's kind of who I am. Or, dude, I'm not freaking heavy metal here, and I'm not mumble rap. I'm more kind of John Mayer, and I want this, I want this brand instead. So I'm going to move on. But right now, I think it's up to the brands to retain them, keep them entertained. I think it's honestly more about the stories we're telling and keeping them welcomed, keeping them invited into the space, making them feel like they belong because they kind of entered it like feeling like outsiders, AJ.
What about creating types of like communities where people can like learn how to do it the right way? Because I know that a conversation obviously with what I do is like teaching these people how to ride the dirt bike the right way. Obviously that's going to keep them because then they're going to get better at it and then they're going to really be hooked. As soon as somebody starts like learning how to do it the right way, now they're just boom, they're hooked. Like, is there a way to do that with BMX, with mountain bike? Sorry about my dog.
think not to interrupt you, Mike, but I think that's one of the things that I'm most looking forward to getting back to is there was no group riding really this past season. Yeah. There was no shop rides. There was no big group rides in trails or on the road. I mean, I'm looking forward to getting back to there. And that's where, I think there's certainly an opportunity to wrap, your brand for sure.
Yeah. And no, you guys are 100% right. Like people are right. There's the point where you're like an interested kind of participant to becoming like an enthusiast, right? And where you're like, you identify yourself as something like AJ, you would say, I'm a freaking motocrosser. I can ride a bike like a mother effer, but I'm a motocrosser. That's what I know. That's what I get paid to do. There's guys that are musicians. They'll say, I'm a musician first and foremost, but maybe they could paint a beautiful watercolor. I think that's kind of, that's the point we're at, right? There's people that are participants. I can ride a bike. It's up to the brand and the industry to say, we're going to make you, and I try not to use the word cyclist. Let's say we're going to make you a rider. We say, I'm a rider, and that's it.
Oh, I see that. It's actually, it's interesting to see it happen in front of my eyes in moto, because you see I have a perfect example. I won't name names necessarily, but they live a town over from me, really like affluent area. They somehow ended up at Tomahawk, and he got his 2 kids dirt bikes, and it started as just like, oh, we'll go here 1 week in a month. And then very quickly that turned into, okay, this dude just showed up in like a $500,000 motorhome and a trailer. And I'm like, oh, all right. And then they hire me, and now I'm working with the kids all the time. And now they're in Florida. So now he just bought another motorhome, and now they just moved to a training facility in Florida. This all happened in like a 1.5 year time span. I was like, holy cow. You saw it. Then they transitioned from a baseball family, big time baseball family,
so they made the right choice.
Straight motocross. I mean, forget baseball now. There's straight motocross, which is cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think 2 things. Number one, we need that guy's job, and then number 2 is I mean, that's amazing. I think, all right. So if
he owns the property where my wife works.
He must be a famous YouTuber.
Yeah, maybe.
That's another conversation. But anyhow, he obviously there's something in the family's kind of psyche that they're all in, right? Probably if it was baseball, they probably took that really serious. The kids were doing clinics. They were doing Little League. They were doing travel league, whatever it was. And so there's something ingrained that's like, if we're doing something, we're doing it the right way. We're going to be coached like by the best. or AJ, whatever comes first. I'm just kidding. No, but like we're gonna find like fantastic coaches, and we're gonna be serious about it. And I think that must be exactly what they did. They're like, all right, we're not playing baseball. We can't have league games. These kids kind of know how to ride dirt bikes, and they've got that natural athletic ability. Dad's probably like, I'm gonna put them in touch. We've got a track not far from us in Hedgesville, and we're gonna put them in touch with AJ, and we're gonna take this thing serious. So I think that's pretty awesome. And in the bike space, we are seeing that. Like there's athletic kids, and it seems like the athletic kids really resonate with either kind of BMX racing or that youth downhill and enduro, the more competitive, a little bit more serious, and the more creative kids that have that natural kind of the same abilities, but then maybe they were more in, like they were in a band or in art, kind of like on that side, like where they were more right brain thinkers, are more the freestyle, right? And they're getting more into freestyle BMX and going to skate parks more about that self-expression. So it's something that's really cool. And these kids are making life decisions too, right? They're like, I'm trying to find myself, especially those younger teenagers, and trying to identify as something. They'll be like, I'm going to be a BMX racer and try to kick some ass, which may end up, like we talked about, they could become motocrossers down the road anyhow.
Hey, Mike, so last week we had on Jeremiah Ellis, who is AJ's supercross mechanic, and he owns his own shop. He's an entrepreneur, and he had his background when he hooked up with AJ as he was in sales for Pilgrim Motorsports. And we asked him a question that kind of, I think, is a good evolution of this discussion, and that was, how did he quantify sponsoring a pro rider or investing in the race side from a marketing standpoint? And to our conversation on how you develop the brand, how you keep a customer base, and where UGT goes in the future, how much weight do you guys put on the race side and race results, and how do you quantify all of that? How do you, because GT had a great couple seasons recently. I mean, you guys are reigning world enduro champions, right?
We're not the champions. We did win a junior World Cup title this year, but we're the only brand in history, and this was recently with Martin Mays, to win back-to-back an enduro World Series race and a downhill World Cup in consecutive weekends. So no one else has done that. That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
It might be cooler than World Championships, actually.
So how do you quantify, or how much weight do you put into those race results, and how do you quantify that into sales, and how does that work?
It's if I could tell you guys over the years, right? This is my 11th year with the company, and the meetings I've had on this when it comes to sports marketing, and I put so much value in our sponsored athletes as being the spokespeople for the brand. It's really tough, right? There's that old saying we've always heard, especially in the motorsports community, which is race on Sunday, which is now Saturday, but race on Sunday, sell on Monday, right? And it's not the case so much, but everything these days is all about a share of voice and making sure that you're relevant in the space that you're playing. And our athletes are our spokespeople. And for GT, we want to make sure that we have got that balance of kind of performance, like Martin Mays, being able to throw down, being an amazing athlete, one of the fastest in the world. But also, and you guys have seen it, and I know you guys are talking about it, personality. Being a team and having sponsored athletes that fans can relate to, that fans want to be connected with, and having that association with the brand, we actually give it almost equal billing when we try to think about the value that an athlete brings to the roster. It has to be both. Either they're going to be performance and purebred, thoroughbred race machines, or they're going to be like our Win Masters, that is an amazing bike rider that people just love because he's such a unique personality. We've got tons of them, but as far as an example on our GT Factory Racing squad.
That's
so which one has more value? Like do a Tomac or like a Roxon that has more of a personality?
Well, that goes to our question that we've talked about a bunch, even on this show, is is why companies I think people give you a hard time for not having the results that people think you should be having as a pro rider. And it's really, I think, and Mike seems to confirm this, that the shift is really going towards somebody who well represents the brand. And they could well represent the brand by just checking off race win after race win, or they could be a personality that customers can relate to and gravitate to, and which is, I think, the value that you bring to a lot of your sponsors is there. You provide a value that's outside of just checking off that win box,
Yep.
podium position.
AJ and Bryce, I'm gonna absolutely, actually, 100% agree. And I think that AJ, well, don't sell yourself short, right? I think that we got this week and we got this season. I think you getting in there and getting in the mix is a huge feather in your cap, and I think everybody's got confidence in that. But what you do outside of Saturday night, I think honestly these days is more important. I think when
now up until what position? Like that's what I wonder. Now, who am I more valuable than?
Yeah.
A 12th place guy, a 6th place guy, a 3rd place guy? That's what because you see like a 6th or 7th or an 8th place guy in the 450 class getting paid a lot of money from like their gear sponsor, or whoever.
Yeah.
So it's like you wonder.
I'll tell you what, if I may, being not a racer, in really having much stake in this at all, there are some guys that are top in the world that are on the podium that I don't think are that great of ambassadors, because they're not connected to the fans, they have maybe a abrasive personality, and no one in particular, but I think we all recognize that some people are better in front of a camera, some people are better with their fans, some people are better with the post-race interviews and stuff like that. And there's some guys that are definitely fast, getting paid a lot of money that, I don't know if GT would throw some sponsorship money towards them, because they don't really represent the mantra.
It's all right. I could give you a real life example. So we know that AJ rides for the SGB team, and through a number of mutual contacts, like there was something about when the current incarnation of the SGB, so we'll say last year and this year of SGB was formed, it connected, because I coming from being a bike brand and industry guy, but also having a moto background, like I knew AJ, I knew his teammates, and I saw a lot of opportunity there to try to help them out, try to give them a leg up. And honestly, in the bicycle space, to answer AJ's question, the bike podium is 5 spots, right? It's 5 spots, right? It's not just the top 3. But realistically, to cut through, you need to be, it's from second place all the way to whoever qualified last that have equal. Like honestly, if you think about headlines, you think about the news, you think about what matters and what sells, it's going to be, there's the guy that won that could say, John Doe from brand A won this weekend's race, and everybody else, I think it's a even playing field in the bike space.
Yeah.
So,
in the, like when you go to a motorcycle dealership, either that Kawasaki dealership has that big poster hanging up that says 2020 Supercross champion, or there's nothing. It's not, hey, Tomac got second place in this 2020 Supercross championship. Right. Yeah. I see the value, and a lot of those guys get a lot of TV time. There's for sure value in that. And then a lot of them, maybe have like a halfway decent Instagram following or something like that. There's a little bit of value in that. But then there's a lot of guys that are just lost in translation. You don't see, a guy that's getting 5th to 7th place every weekend and killing it, and it's super, super fast, gets 0 TV time, goes completely unnoticed. And it's like, well, to hit, whether it's his fault or not, like, is that guy really of any value? I don't know.
Yeah, we assess a lot of our riders by what that connection is going to be, and there's like that kind of, there's brand awareness, which is cool. Like people, hey, John Doe rides for GT, And then there's that affinity where they want to identify with a brand, and they want to identify with the personalities that represent the brand. And I honestly think, and it's going to sound like I'm kissing your butt, but what you've been doing with your schools, with your channel, you're definitely skewing to the affinity side where people are like, I like what this guy's entertaining. This guy is, we know that he's got a proven track record, so we trust what he's saying. We've got this trust, and he right now is riding and representing these brands that I have full faith in it. And like a great example in the bike space is, luckily someone that we support and that we love is Phil Kmetz, or Skills with Phil. So if you haven't followed Skills with Phil in the bike space, like he's like that too. Like he is someone that he's speaking to a really broad audience. Like if you want to learn how to manual to nose bong to throw a massive whip over crabapple hits and Whistler, or what it's like to qualify for World Cup downhill, he can teach you that. But he can also teach you how to do a basic bunny hop and to tune your derailleur if you want. And that's like, to me, and to like, as far as these key decisions that Bryce asked about, like that's what matters most.
And when that guy goes and tells his audience that he uses this product, or he recommends that you get this product, they're going to listen.
Yeah.
Relatability.
Even if that product is the worst product in the world, if he like is telling his audience that you better go get this, they're going to go get it. Yeah. I mean, I see it with my students. Like I don't
trust
sell.
and relatability are so huge.
Yeah. It's just, it's building that trust with your audience big time. Big time. And that's why I'm very picky with companies I align myself with, because I'm not going to push a product that I don't believe in, because then people are going to go get that product, and then that reflects poorly on me. So, and Bryce and I talk about that all the time. I think like I have a really good group of companies around me right now where I feel good about what I'm putting out there. Like I'm telling my audience to go get this, go get that, or make sure you do this. And like, I believe what I'm saying. That I think that has a lot of value, where, I could take a check, but, but then what?
And, if you think about it in all industries, especially in industries where there's brands that are publicly traded, there are decisions that are made by shareholders, right? And the shareholders a lot of times they're going to want to see like top headline results. Either it is wins, new product development, key stories, and that's all because they're business people and they're focused on the bottom line. That's one thing. But then as we're seeing this shift, these industries like the motorcycle industry, which is surprising, but not really, because the bike industry had such a boom, and as we'd already discussed, the kind of the MSRP value is like you can get a new 450 for the same price you get a road race bike. They're freaking like, we're seeing these booms, and honestly, like we're seeing a shift, and I really think that you should feel confident in the direction that you're taking. You're taking your channel, you're taking your personal brand, which I don't like. Sometimes when you say brand, that starts to sound shallow, but like it's who you are as far as a personality, or is it an influencer, right?
Yeah,
AJ loves that.
Talk about a word that I dislike. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure.
Yeah, I get excited thinking about where like I sometimes get stressed because I find myself at so many forks in the road which is a good thing, I guess, because I have multiple opportunities present themselves often. It just like, I think I finally do have direction of like, okay, this is, if you had asked me 5 years ago what my 5-year plan was, I didn't really have that answer for you. Now it's like, yeah, I got it pretty figured out. Wow. As long as something catastrophic doesn't happen. Like
knock on wood.
Like, well, yeah, like even outside of me personally, as long as people are still involved in the sport and YouTube still exists, and I'm just pretty confident with the direction that things are going. I feel momentum. I keep telling people that, and I'm having conversations. I'm like, I truly feel, for one of the first times, maybe the first time ever in my life, I feel real tangible momentum. It's cool.
Yeah, keep it up. Yep. If you're feeling confident there, I think the other thing is making sure you stay engaged which we know you're great at, but making sure that whether it's here on the podcast, if people are reaching out and asking questions, make sure you're responding back. I think this is all stuff this is what, like, on the brand management side, this is what we look at. Are our athletes, are our ambassadors, are they engaged with the community? And are they part of the conversation? And so, like, the work that you're doing, definitely keep it up. And honestly, like it is, like you said, there's the guy or girl that wins one weekend, and then there's all these people that are really serious about what they want to do. Maybe they don't have a personality or the means or the understanding to adapt to social media, and we've heard it like so many times, like how important in today, like, love it or not, how important it is to actually this is how people ingest their information. And like for my brand, for GT, we're doing like a lot of insights work on that next generation of bike buyers and bike consumers. Like, you hear the millennial conversations and jokes, right? There's old farts, there's Gen Xers like myself. And it sounds like we actually got off pretty easy. And then we've got our folks, which are the boomers. But then we've got the younger demographic, the younger generation, Generation Z, which are Zoomers, which is pretty funny that we're on Zoom right now. And how they gauge a brand based on these criteria, like who their ambassadors are and who like, everything is about like an investment. It's an investment in their time because they're always connected to social media. They resonate. Like, they're the first generation that's actually born into this technology, so they resonate with you. They see you as a friend. Whether they've met you or not, you've already got this relationship. So, like, we hold a lot of merit there.
I've never looked at it that way. I mean, for somebody that grows up with that technology right from the get-go, I guess that would give you a different perspective on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is.
Are you at all worried, Mike, in your discussions about that generation in particular? Are you worried about keeping their attention and how to keep their attention?
Holy cow! Yeah. Worried. I don't know if I could say worried. It's exciting to always have challenges. Like, we have all these, like, and I've got a great team that's really rolled up their sleeves. There's one person in particular, Brendan, on my team, that handles our content marketing, and like, part of his job with Rochelle, his teammate, is to actually spend a lot of time understanding them. And like, I find myself feeling like I'm having deja vu of conversations like I overheard my dad saying and my mom saying growing up. Like, wait, what are they talking about? What is this? I don't understand it. But it is like, there is a balance there, and it's very much short attention span. You got to resonate, you got to connect. But once you connect, they're willing to commit their time, and that's like an investment. That's like buying a product. Like, if you're seeing on this podcast or on any of the social media, if you're seeing that people are, like, if you have a produced video, if they're watching through to a certain point and it's almost the end of the video, that's massive. It's all the way to the end. Holy cow, there's a lot of value there. So, yeah, if there's a challenge.
We don't get that on this podcast.
No, but Bryce, I tell you what, I had somebody come up to me at the track today. Shout out Jamie. Came up and said, "Oh, that part where you're talking about at the end, is anybody even listening right now?" He goes, "I was listening."
Yeah, well,
like,
there was a comment. There was a comment on one of them too. It's like, "Oh yeah, I'm that guy who listens to the end." There's people out there that listen to the end. I'm not one of them.
And it's keeping up with the trends too, you know, like, I'm sure your team has somebody that's like really on the up and up with that type of stuff, but I call it stupid because like the TikTok thing.
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all, to be honest with you, but I created one just to make sure like I got one.
TikTok has made me single-handedly realize that I'm old now. Like,
yes. Yeah. That was kind of my come to like my realization too. I'm
as much as I could talk about, like I still listen to like mainstream music. I'm still like,
we're out of touch, dude.
Quote unquote. Dude,
no, we're not.
TikTok is single-handedly made me realize I'm full of shit.
Yeah.
There's so many little things that that go right over our head where we're like,
way over.
Don't understand that. Another big one, at least that's been working extremely well for me lately, is the Reels on Instagram.
Yeah. Big
Like
push to that.
I always like have pushback on these new things. I'm like, no. I almost feel like an old person. Like, no, I'm not going to get a cell phone, or I'm not going to get an iPhone. I don't need that. I just stick with my flip phone. I push them back for a little bit. I'm like, oh, screw it. I need to get it. Because my Instagram I was stuck at like 87,000 followers for 8 months. Yeah, that's for like 8 months.
For a while. I mean, I check your follower count daily, and I'm just
it wasn't moving. I wasn't putting a whole lot of effort into it, but it wasn't moving. And then I started doing the Reels like 2 weeks ago, and it's up to 91,000. So it went up 5.
All the algorithm, man. That they're pushing Reels big time. I'm always amazed with like people I come across, and they have like a respectable following, but then they'll post a video from like their TikTok or screenshot their TikTok, and they have like, let's say 60,000 Instagram followers. And we, you and I may have once held the Instagram follower count and really is like the gold standard, or maybe YouTube subscribers, but TikTok, you'll see a 60,000 follower count Instagram. There are 2 million on TikTok. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm definitely missing something.
And there's different types of content for different channels, right? You've got your long form content, which can live on YouTube. You've got your banger, right? Which your banger can be part of your reel. It could be part of your Instagram, or it could definitely, if there's fun music put to it, boy, could that live, and it's funny, that can live on TikTok. And then you've got your static stuff, which for the old farts that are still on Facebook, they could use that, right? So it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world of marketing. It's a whole new world in like design and creative and thinking about like where focus. It's not like, hey, I'm going to start thinking about an ad campaign and I'm really going to focus on what the magazine spread is going to be for this new product. No, it's how do we slice this thing up so it could be ingested to our audience in all these different ways.
It's complicated. There's a lot that goes into that, because the same video shoot would have your Instagram version, your Instagram story, your Reels, your TikTok, your Facebook, your long form YouTube. It's like 6 or 7 different ways.
You just wrote a brief to your next shoot. You got to make sure I got to check all these boxes. Perfect.
Well, like when we did like the that Nitro Circus stuff with the pit bike at Pastrana's and then at Ryan Sipes' house, when they sent us the content to help push for the airing on ESPN, they sent it to us in Dropbox and entitled everything. It was Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and they had different formats and different style videos for us to post to each type.
Yeah,
it was interesting to see that.
This length and runtime for this, 16:9 vertical for that. It's so nuts. 15 seconds for this, and that's how we market these days.
I don't hate it.
I think,
you're reaping the benefits of that.
Yeah.
But Bryce, to bring things full circle too, I really, like this pandemic, tragic and terrible, but like we're really hopeful that we did like awaken a new audience to bike. We know with every wave or every boom, there's going to be that kind of apex, and then there's going to be a downside to it. Optimistically, and I'm a hopeless optimist, is that there are, and stats are showing that there are enough people that are excited about riding a bike again, that this is like almost like an awakening, right? I think for the bike industry globally, no one predicted what was going to happen with COVID.
Don't mind me, guys.
Was going to happen. Right?
I was going to say, we can't see you, AJ. So until you highlighted yourself, we were on speaker view, and
I know, but
now,
for poor Mike trying to have a conversation, he's seeing me over here. I'm only making it worse. But go ahead.
Week 4 of not listening to me about the green screen. But okay, go ahead, Mike.
I filed a return for it. I mean, I'm going to return it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Like a tax return. Good.
Yes.
No, but but what I was saying is not super important, but like the industry couldn't prepare for this, right? And I know the motorcycle industry is having the same things. Like I've got buddies that have really fast kind of young like shop sponsored mini riders that are having a tough time. They're waiting for their new bikes to come in. Like they're ready to buy them, but they're not available. And in the bike industry, it's the same thing. Like 21's going to be a year of a bit of bonkersness where everybody, supply and demand, are going to be fighting each other. And then there's going to be a lot of dealers saying, give me the bikes. A lot of online retailers saying, give me the bikes. A lot of distributors saying, give me the bikes. So it's going to be a really unique year. I think my advice for your audience that currently has a pretty new bike, aside from go out and see if you can buy a new GT, would be stick with what you have, pay attention to the media out there, see what's coming out, and make some smart decisions. Because I'm predicting that it's going to be a little bit of an interesting year as far as availability of bikes. And then I think the future is going to be awesome. Everyone's saying, okay, we reacted. We've got a new crowd. We know we have to forecast for production, tenfold from years past. That's been one of the big kind of enlightening things from one of the positive takeaways.
Where are your bikes? Where are your bikes coming from?
Our GT's bikes, much like 98% of the industry, are coming from Taiwan, Asia.
Okay.
And that's another thing. Like like I said, almost the entire bike industry mass produces their bikes overseas. And there's actually right now there's conversations going on. I'm trying to say, hey, who's got containers to load? That's how nuts it is right now.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. And component, like suppliers, like rubber factories that are giving materials to the grip, saddle, and tire companies are all scrambling. Like, no, because no one was ready for this. Like, you want how many tires filled by Maxxis? How many tires filled by brand X? Wow, we got to really freaking amp things up, or ramp things up.
It's everything right now. I mean, I can't even, I don't have any new helmets. So I'm like trying to like get my old helmets wrapped and custom painted so I can like repainted so I can wear my old last year's helmets, because no one's getting any new stuff. There was a shipment that came, I don't know where it came from. It was going across the ocean, and it was super delayed, first of all. And then by the time this ship finally started heading this way, all the containers fell off. Not all of them, but a whole bunch of them just fell into the ocean. And it had like, I don't think it had a Rise stuff, but it had a bunch of like motocross related. Did it have any bicycle stuff in there? Like, have you heard that or no?
We've heard also. I don't know if we heard it this year actually, but I've heard similar.
So is that
stories
common?
Where
well, not common, but you've heard of it.
Yeah, I can't say it's common, but it does happen where like there are ships. They have to be transported by. If we were to air freight things around the world, it would be like there's no way anybody would still be in business. So they're all on ships in containers, and honestly, there's things like storms at sea where containers are lost. There is damage from storms at sea for every kind of mass produced business. And then there's things like delays at port where people are expecting, a new car, say the new Toyota hybrid by January 1st, and they can't get it through the port and offload it onto the freighter truck up to the dealership for another couple of months. It's that complex.
Bryce, should we let Mike go here? What time is it?
We've run long, but yeah, I mean, we could wrap it up if you want, Mike.
I just want to keep the poor guy.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll go tuck the kids in. I'll wrestle them to sleep a little bit. It seems like usually my wife loves it. As soon as they're ready for bed, Daddy comes down from work and gets them all fired up again. So.
Are they? How old are your kids?
I got a 10 and an 8-year-old.
Are they currently doing school from home? I don't know how it's working where you are.
Yeah, where we are in our district in New York, they're doing Monday through Wednesday. They're remote, so it's a hybrid system. So like, what is it? Last name ending A through L, I think it is.
Oh, that's how they do it?
Yeah, it goes in like Monday and Tuesday. Everybody is remote on Wednesday, and then M through Z goes in Thursday and Friday.
Man.
It's complicated.
That's wild. Imagine your at that age, your best friend is it has the wrong last name, and you guys are on different days, and you're like, dang.
Yeah.
You get to catch up on Wednesdays, and that's when you're both virtual. And like for our business, I've been working remote since March. We're coming up on a year of being remote.
Isn't that wild? I can't believe
So
it's
nuts.
been that long. Yeah.
And our industry is like, it's so much about relationships. So typically in a normal year, so this normal word, I don't think there ever be the normal word used again. But we would already have been, let's see, it's January. We already had made a sales meeting trip to Asia. Last year, we would have done trips to Taiwan. Like we would have had internal sales meetings. We would have had activations at events like Sea Otter or Crankworks. Like there's so much travel involved. And then there's new product launches. There's press camps. There's
Eurobike.
Internal sales meetings. Yeah, there's Eurobike.
Would you go to Crankworks?
Yeah, we've been at. GT is one of Crankworks' big partners, but it's also the especially at the Whistler round. GT is the bike park partner there.
So do you actually go to that event typically?
Yeah, past 2 years I haven't, but I have been. I've been there consecutive opening weekends, which is always real fun too, and that's in what Canada calls May long weekends to the middle of May, and where most of the mountain opens up and there's still snow up top, and it's actually really cool. And conditions are primo because the trail crew's been working and it's not all breaking bumped out, not blown out. Yep. Exactly.
Oh man, I want to go back so bad. Even whenever we were there, we went in August. Was it August? I think we went in August, and when we went to Top of the World, there was snow up on Top of the World.
Yeah, I mean, there's the one glacier up there, like it never fully melts off that you could see from up there too. It's like,
which is wild because then by the time you get back to the bottom, it's 90 degrees and yeah.
But honest, like AJ and Bryce, this was cool, and like if I think about this past year, like working in the bike industry, it's been so nuts. So much to get used to with the working environment, with being remote all the time when we're used to traveling so much. But we've got a toy hauler. We've had some awesome family kind of mountain bike long weekends. We've had some good moto weekends. We've had great freaking just family adventures. And the fact that I'm home, my wife's a school teacher and she's special ed, so she has to actually be in school with the kids.
My wife's a teacher too. Yeah.
Okay, so you can relate.
Mm-hmm.
It's nuts. And I'm home, and I'm like guidance counselor. I'm lunch lady. I'm co-teacher.
Oh yeah.
A gym teacher all at the same time, and IT department, right? Especially when we've started this crap with them, like
oh yeah,
their laptops crashing all the time, and then trying to get my own work done. It's been
that's a I will say 8 and 10. You said.
Yeah.
That's a tough age to be in the position that you're in, to have like this homeschool just brought upon you.
Yeah.
At Bright.
Because what are they? Third, fourth grade?
Third and fifth.
Third and fifth. My wife teaches fourth, and I could tell you, she's not. And you're sure your wife knows it's not an enjoyable time to be in school or out of school or involved with education really in any way. It's super tough.
Right. So is your wife because we did our our first responders are super the superhero nurses and doctors getting immunizations and inoculations. Is she on a list? Because I know educators are next.
So
next
Connecticut educators, I think, and I'm not sure the rollout phases, they're considered 1B. So they're in the first phase, but the B part of the first phase. So I'll call it the second phase. I'm not sure exactly when that is supposed to roll out.
Gotcha.
Because they're not even through phase 1A yet. So I think it's coming sooner than later, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife, her district's already talking about it too, so it's interesting. She's like, she didn't, I don't think she's ever had the flu shot or anything, so she's like, I don't know, like, I know I'm supposed to get this, but I don't know, this all happened pretty fast.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I'm like, is it good for me, Doc? Okay, just stick it in my arm, whatever.
Yeah, you can't overthink it. I think that you can get into the weeds by overthinking it.
Oh yeah, yep. No, but this was a lot of fun, guys. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Mike, we appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And anytime I get to talk bikes, AJ likes moto. He could talk moto all day, but when I can talk bikes, I'm in my glory.
Cool. Well,
When
I'll tell you
GTs
what.
become available again, I got to get myself on one. I look at a GT Fury, and not that I would ever necessarily need the top of the line pro model, but damn it if that's not one of the best looking bikes on the planet. That blue with the yellow logo and the orange Fox 40s. Oh my God.
Which is a surprise. It's surprising because that is like a weird few colors to mix together, but it does. I do like
looks
it.
so damn good.
We
didn't even get to high pivot yet. I wanted to talk about that, but we won't keep you. We'll save that for the next time.
Yeah, we can't talk high pivot now, but
That's
I will say
that's a whole episode in and of itself.
it is, and when the time comes, we should talk high pivot, and let's schedule it because there's a reason we should talk high pivot and GT bikes. I'm not saying what it is.
Cool. We'll save it for the next time.
Well, for the one person still listening to this podcast, we thank you. And thanks, Mike, for coming
and we
on.
encourage you to follow GT Bikes in all of their content and all their riders' content. If you like bikes or two wheels, definitely check them out. They have a bunch of cool content. And get yourself on some sort of list to get a new GT bike when they become available again.
Talk to your local dealer. Find out when they're going to be available. If you're new to the sport, maybe even go to your local Dick's Sporting Goods. If your local dealer doesn't have anything available, we have a line of bikes there. But yeah, ask around. And Bryce, AJ, it was an honor, a pleasure. AJ, you don't need skill. I can't wish you skill for this weekend. I don't even know if you need luck. I think you got to just give her hell. And get out there.
I need to just stay positive and level-headed.
Yeah.
That's all we need.
What you need to do
as long as I don't
swear.
get down on myself. I need to swear.
You need to swear. Real quick for the audience, Mike asked if there's any do's and don'ts before coming on, particularly with swearing. I have a terrible mouth. AJ is like a kid in church every single day. It makes you feel very awkward when I swear. And it's also equally weird to hear you swear when you finally decide to
So
swear.
is it you think it is as well? Because when I swear,
hear you, it's weird.
Yeah, but same. When it comes out of my mouth, it just doesn't sound right. It sounds way worse.
It does. You gotta watch though the history of swear words on Netflix.
Is it good? I saw it. I didn't watch it.
It's pretty funny, but I thought of you. The first episode is about fuck, obviously, and they're talking about like the psychology of swearing and how it triggers a fight, or the same response as fight or flight, and there's actual benefits to swearing in challenging situations. And they did this test with an ice water. You stick your hand in ice water, you could withstand pain 50% longer by swearing through it than if you're not swearing. And I thought of you on the gate, getting yourself in a completely different mindset and just being fuck you, fuck this. Let's fucking go.
I love it.
Could you imagine? Because you can, when you're on the line right before the gate drops, every once in a while, I mean, depending on who you're lined up next to, you can hear people yell.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if I was just swearing the whole time?
Dude, I think that you should try it out. I'm telling you.
That would psych people out, especially people that know you, AJ.
What
is wrong with them?
It would cause confusion.
I need you to try it, and then we could talk about it on the recap episode.
Okay, fair enough.
Awesome.
Right.
Well,
Mike, thanks again, man.
You got it. I'm glad that AJ committed to swearing on the line. AJ's gonna kick some ass this weekend. And Bryce and AJ, we've got a couple of pro riders with interesting stories lined up for a future podcast based on feedback. So if you want to talk about what it's like to be a local pro mountain bike racer as opposed to a pro motocrosser, we got that. We got free riders. We got moto guys turned freestylers like Ronnie Renner that we'd love to put you in touch with, and you just let us know.
Yeah, looking forward to that, Mike. We could not be more grateful for that opportunity. So thank you very much.
Awesome.
Go tuck those kiddos in, and I wish you luck being school principal and lunch lady and everything else tomorrow.
I need it. Thanks, guys.
All right, buddy. Thanks for everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Toodaloo.
Adios.